So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's 5:30, so it's time to start. Do we have welcome to the Cabinet on the 18th of October, Harlow Council? Are there any apologies for absence?
There are none.
Thank you. Oh, on that point, we usually have, although he's not a member of the Cabinet, we usually have Tony Edwards as an extra attender, and as many of you will know, Tony's been really quite unwell. He was taken into hospital and has had some serious surgery. I'm pleased to let everybody know that he is back home now and to all intents and purposes making a strong recovery. So we're thinking about Tony now. Are there any declarations of interest? No. Right, minutes. Item 3. Do we approve those minutes? Agree. Thank you. Item 5 on the agenda, written questions from the public. I believe we have one. Ms. Sullivan, do you want to read your question or should we take it as read?
Can I read it?
Of course.
At the Cabinet meeting on the 25th of January 2018, I addressed a question to the relevant portfolio holder concerning Stevenage Borough Council's introduction of an Article 4 direction. That direction removed permitted development rights for changes of use from C3 residential to C4 HMO across all wards in the borough. I asked why Harlow Council could not follow the same process to establish the same protection for all wards in Harlow. I received a written reply stating that officers would be preparing a report for discussion and the Cabinet would make a decision. The expectation was that the report would be available in March 2018. The introduction of the relevant Article 4 direction would not stop the development of HMOs in Harlow, but it would require developers to obtain planning consent before converting properties. This enables the local planning authority to assess and decide on the suitability of the conversion. If either developer or neighbours are unhappy with that decision, they have the right of appeal to an independent planning inspectorate. People living in Harlow at present have no voice in this process, and many have suffered adverse effects when it is all too late. 6 months on from March, what progress has been made with this report?
Thank you, Sheila. Councillor.
Thank you. In response, officers have looked at the work that Stevenage Borough Council has done in securing an Article 4 direction to remove permitted development rights in relation to HMO conversions. It has been concluded that this approach would not be possible with Harlow. Stevenage have a provision in their local plan which links the development of HMOs to the provision of adequate car parking. As such, they have been able to secure a borough-wide Article 4 direction using this criterion, which will require applicants to submit full planning applications demonstrating that sufficient parking provision is being made. Such a provision does not exist in Harlow's current local plan, and so will not be able to use the same methodology as Stevenage. The Council has received legal advice that would not be successful with any town-wide Article 4 direction. It should be pointed out that when Harlow's new draft local plan is adopted, which is hoped will be in June 2019, we will then have the ability to follow the same process that Stevenage has done. The Council has already indicated its willingness to seek Article 4 directions when we think this is justified and would be successful. In recent months, the Council has introduced an Article 4 direction in the enterprise zone at Temple Fields, and officers are currently looking at the feasibility of further Article 4 directions in other locations across the town. A report in connection with this was discussed at the Scrutiny Committee on the 16th of October. Additionally, a motion will be moved at the full council meeting on the 1st of November this year. Lastly, whilst HMOs contribute to meeting housing needs, particularly of single young people, and keep homelessness down, we've already been made aware of the issues some poorly managed HMOs have been causing to their neighbours. With this in mind, we are reviewing the powers we already have for regulating HMOs to see if there's more that can be done to enhance good neighbourly relations.
Do you have a supplementary question?
Well, yes, I just would like to know that Harlow Council members are aware of the strength of feeling among those people who have suffered badly from these properties.
Thank you, Mr Sullivan, and thank you for the original question on this very important subject. Yes, members are aware of the continuing issues that HMOs cause within the district, and that's why we are addressing the situation as we are. But as you can see from my original answer, to go back to what Stephen's done, we wasn't in a legal position to do that until hopefully next June when we can. But yes, we are aware of the issues that HMOs are being caused, and it's something that's very much at the top of the agenda.
So, item 6 on the agenda, written questions from councillors. There are none. Item 7 on the agenda is a petition. Now, we have a petition from Tony Edwards, but due to his illness, I'm going to ask Chris Vince to present it in his stead.
Do you want to go up there? Or is it in? Stay there, okay. Thank you. So the petition reads, Harlow Town Centre needs a visible, ongoing police presence to tackle the increase in crime. I have to say, it's with no pleasure that I bring this petition to Cabinet. I want Councillor Tony Edwards to be sitting here presenting with this petition. It's Councillor Edwards who has consistently highlighted the issue in the town centre to this chamber, to our group, and to the wider community. It's Councillor Edwards who has spoken to local business owners about the loss of trade due to antisocial behaviour, and to residents who feel frightened by it. It's Councillor Edwards who put the work in getting these signatures. In addition to 1,000 names that we've got, I've submitted to you, there are also 136 that were online. I thank publicly Councillor Edwards for all his work. I thank him for his passion and his commitment, and I'm pleased to say, as you mentioned earlier, he's making a strong recovery after his operation. I joined Councillor Edwards and colleagues in the town centre to collect signatures, and I have to say it wasn't difficult to get support for this. People are genuinely concerned. I'm glad that already Councillor Edwards' petition has seen some response, although speaking to street traders this still feels erratic, and they're keen that the issue is not dropped, which is why I'm raising it with you today. The Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner has raised the precept and is going to give Essex 150 more officers. And I'm not complaining about this, it's exactly the same thing I would have done. But the reality is that this only means 10 extra officers for Harlow. And when you take into account the various roles that they're required to do, all extremely important of course, like the 3 who will be part of the domestic violence team, which will cover Harlow and Loughton, plus of course the various shift patterns that our officers do, we see the effect on policing in the town centre will be still quite limited. This petition shows the strong feeling that people of Harlow have about the lack of policing in our town. And I urge you, Chair, to add your voice to the petition and that of the councils. Chair, we have a real issue here. It not only affects our residents, it also affects our local business. We want our town to thrive, but clearly it can only do so if people feel safe in our town centre. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Vince. 1,000 people signing this petition is a very loud voice, and we would be foolish to ignore it. This is an important issue. It's an issue that affects us all, whether we shop in the town centre or whether our businesses are located in the town centre, whether we use the town centre for recreation or if we're just walking through it. I totally agree with the sentiments. I'm happy to add my voice to it. In fact, both I and Councillor Johnson, the Leader of the Opposition, recently wrote a letter to the Police and Crime Commissioner talking about just this issue. I'll ensure this petition goes to the Scrutiny Committee as part of their review into policing in Harlow, and further work will be done on it. Councillor Hall.
Yes, thank you very much. This sort of falls into my lap really, although my expertise is now decades old, but I should be happy to add to whatever is brought forward and to put my, as I say, ageing expertise to some good.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Experience never goes out of fashion, and your support is welcomed.
Thank you.
So, can we move on to item 8, the forward plan? Councillor Charles. Sorry. Councillor Carter.
Thank you. It's not what's in the plan, it's what's missing from the plan. In September, there was item 508-206, potential redevelopment of garage site in the Readings. That seems to have disappeared, and also the development of Bushy Croft. Bear in mind, well, I assume that assuming these two projects are still going ahead, they'll have to come to Cabinet to approve the expenditure. So I'm wondering why they've disappeared. Anybody?
They are still going ahead. I think they'll be tied up with a report later in the year regarding a regeneration and housing company to encompass the future schemes that isn't in the forward plan at the moment, I believe.
Which isn't for
December.
Sorry, December. To be incorporated in there.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. On page 15, it notes the agenda item for 6th of December, the creation of HTS Housing Regeneration Company. Two parts to this question. The first one is, will this paper come with a business plan for the creation of this company? And the second and more concerning question I have is, I understand that Harlow Council set up a shell company for this organisation, which is a subsidiary of HTS. Can I understand why Harlow Council set that up without consulting the directors of HTS first? And why was the shareholder subcommittee not notified either? My understanding is that it would go against the spirit of company law that directors didn't give specific approval for the shell company to be set up before Harlow Council went ahead and did that. Can you give me some clarification?
I can certainly give you some clarification about the business plan. Yes, it will be coming with a business plan.
I can deal with the other issue. Back in June, the Cabinet decided to set up the company. We were anxious to actually have it formed and on the books as soon as possible, as one would do, so the shell company was set up. There was a couple of days where we set it up before we'd actually mentioned it to the shareholders, not to the shareholders, but to the board. I do accept that. However, it is our company, and I think if you go to the background papers, it was for us to set it up, not for them. But there's a lack of courtesy. You could say that we should have mentioned it to them earlier than we did.
If I just brief, that's the whole point, because everyone wants to see how this develops, and as someone who sits on the shareholder subcommittee, it's just the courtesy of being notified at least. I wasn't, and nor were the directors before it was actually set up as a shell, and I think we need to get that right in the future. That's all I'm saying.
I've had lengthy conversations with the chair of the company on that. We've reached an understanding. We do work very closely together, I'd hasten to add, and we were just anxious that it was set up, although it's not operating, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Charles. That's noted. Any further questions on the forward plan? Good. Then let's move on to recent decisions taken by the leader, deputy or portfolio holder. There have been none. Item 10, pages 23 to 37. A review of the enterprise zone business rates relief policy. Who's proposing that?
I propose that, Chair.
And I'm seconding it.
Two seconds words. That's great. Okay, I think it's a really good opportunity. We've come along quite a long way since the 5 years since we initially looked at the business rates. And and the enterprise zone has gone on from strength to strength, and it continues to be an asset for Harlow and the area around us. We've had the groundbreaking ceremony this week on 2 new buildings, and it's a really exciting time, one of which of course will be the council building, which we're all really excited about. I think just be remiss of me not to thank the officers and all those involved. It was great to go to the Enterprise Zone Board meeting last week and see how much the businesses there actually value the contribution that they get to make with the council and the relationship, and I hope we've struck a balance there. This report in itself I think is a positive. It allows us some flexibility in our policy, readjusting stuff as things move on. 5 years has been a long time, and we initially did a policy that we thought worked, and this is to tweak and improve it, allowing certain things about location, allowing us flexibility on, obviously some parts of the site are new in capacity and doing really well, other parts we could use encouragement, so allowing us some discretion on the areas and the sites. I think this is a really positive step forward in policy, and I think the Enterprise Zone is doing fantastic.
Thank you. I second. Councillor Charles.
Yeah, thanks. Look, predominantly I welcome this report, and I welcome the tightening up of the some of the issues around the geography and the sector qualifications as well. I think that's a smart move. I just really have a clarification on page 24 around the timescales, so paragraph 7, and whoever can cover this for me. I understand what is being said here, that we're now setting out specific dates and years when the proposed discounts will cease. All I want to know is the logic that's gone into those dates and those years to factor in that we will cease those discounts. I mean, in particular on the Harlow Science Park, is it a case that it's overly subscribed, there isn't the need to have this discount, and that's why we're closing it on March 2019? Because it would have seemed prudent to me to extend it by, say, a year or so if there isn't that lack of, if there isn't the demand that we expect. I just wanted to understand the logic by how you've set those dates, really. It's a long way of asking it, I know, Andrew.
The logic really is that KO Park, that's now 85% occupied. And is doing really well. It's a very attractive business destination in its own right. I actually don't think we can justify offering financial incentives to businesses when actually that's not going to be their main reason for going there. They'll go there because it's a good place to be. With the Harlow Science Park, obviously, as Councillor Tolles mentioned, we've just started the physical construction work this week. And we've set an initial timescale there of another 3 years for those discounts to be available to act as an incentive for businesses to come to the science park. I would hope by March 2021 we're in a strong position there. However, Cabinet always has the option in future years to revise that policy if it chooses to do so. And Templefields always was a much longer term project anyway, so that's why that date is the furthest one back.
Yeah, look, Andrew, no, I'm grateful for that. All I would say to you is, and it's just purely out of interest on this, why set a date for the Harlow Science Park at the moment? Why don't you keep that out of the policy at the moment and see how that progresses over the next few years? That's really my only gut feeling on that, but you're the expert. And really, if I was you, I wouldn't have set a date.
My view on that really is that setting a date actually provides an incentive, and if people know that it's going to be cut off at a certain time, then they're more likely to make decisions that actually we should go to Harlow now, because if we don't, that incentive is lost to us.
Yeah, fair.
As I said before, the Cabinet will always have the opportunity to amend this policy in the future, so if it was felt it was sensible to extend that in the future, then that's always open to the Council.
Fine.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems a very sort of sensible on common sense way forward. It all retains that interest, incentive to people to go in, but on the other hand, gives us flexibility to change it. I have a sort of slightly pedantic concern about Appendix A, that's the application form, as to whether it's actually been proofread yet. There's the usual scattering of capital letters and lowercase around. What particularly irritated me was the reference to sending classification codes, which is a full abbreviation, so I say it should be several letters, but that appears in several different options as well. I'm afraid the map on page 26 is worse than useless. I mean, can you tell me, for example, whether Elsenham is included, or Debden, for example?
Councillor Charles, can you give us page number again?
Page 36.
36, yeah.
This is not
I mean, it's obviously a very large map and reduced down, so the words, however much you blow it up, are intelligible.
Well,
I've blown up quite a good time.
so Elsenham will be outside the area. It basically goes to the north of the Bishop Stortford Ring Road, but I take the councillor's point, and perhaps we can look to get a clearer map that's published with the application form.
And Debden?
Debden to the south, on this scale I'd struggle to see that as well, but
It is.
yeah.
I'm sure you can find a map with bigger words on it. But it's we need to look to talk professional next about doing this, and this function is all just sit down. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. So, hang on a minute, I've lost the page. So, the recommendation was that the revised business rates relief policy attached as Appendix 1 to the report be approved. Do we accept that recommendation? Thank you. And we move on to item 11, the contract award for external refurbishment works in the Heights, pages 38 to 41. Who's proposing
I formally move this, Chair.
Oh, I'm seconding that. Sorry.
Do you want to speak on it?
No, fine. Thank you. Quite straightforward.
Okay, are we
Agreed.
well, first let me read it first for the record. The most economically advantageous tender submitted by contractor D is accepted in the sum of £929,376.35 for the delivery of the external refurbishment works programme subject to contractor and leaseholder consultation. Do we accept that?
Agreed.
Lovely, thank you. And if we could move on to item 12, which is on page 42 and 45, a similar item, this time dealing with contract awards in the Hornleys. Who's proposing next?
I formally move that, Chair.
Second that, Chair.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment on that? Councillor Carter.
Thank you. Just as the shadow housing portfolio holder, to welcome both of these contracts. There have been sort of various delays and things over the years, and some of the work is absolutely desperately needed. At the Housing Welfare Panel this morning, there was a tenant who's having problems with a leaky roof, has gone on for some time, but hopefully this will get it fixed with a reasonable time span, so the sooner the better.
I welcome those comments, Chair.
Thank you. So the recommendation is the most economically advantageous tender submitted by contractor E is accepted in the sum of £355,809.85 for the delivery of the external refurbishment works as detailed subject to contractor and leaseholder consultation. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Let's move on to item 13, which is on page 46. Appointments to Cabinet Overview, Working Group, Panels and Partnership Bodies. I am recommending that Tony Durkin, Councillor Durkin, takes over as the Chair of the Cabinet Overview Working Group, and that Tony Edwards, who assures me that he's well placed to judge about well-being at the moment, and he fully intends to recover in order to take it over. Takes over the chair of the West Essex Wellbeing Joint Committee. There is one mistake on that page. The vacancy there for the substitute on the West Essex Wellbeing Joint Committee should have my name next to it. So I move that we accept those changes and the addition.
I second that, Chair.
Thank you. Any comments? Lovely. Right, moving then on to item 14, the Cabinet Overview Working Group Plan 2018-19. I propose that we add the following items to the Cabinet Overview Working Group Work Plan, an item on houses of multiple occupation, and a B, a housing strategy. I move that.
And I will second that, Chair.
Lovely. Item 15, communications from committees, working groups, parties and panels. There are none. Minutes of panels and working groups. To note the following draft minutes are the minutes of the Harlow Local Highways panel on page 47.
Noted.
Do we note that? Noted. Good. I'm not believing that's a lot. Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Joe, just before we close the meeting,
Yes.
I don't know how many of you noticed the entrance to the Civic Centre this evening. There is a copies have been stuck on the windows as you go in. They have been donated by a local artist who actually drew them and arranged for them to be printed and paid for them herself. Sadly, I don't have a name. She'll be finishing tomorrow. We're hoping to get a little bit of publicity about that in some form or another. I'll also bring to your attention, you may have noticed also down by the family group, there is a silhouette in the form of a First World War soldier. Part of their but not their campaign. The council and HTS group have both acquired 2 each. We got agreement this afternoon from the Water Gardens to position 2 of them actually in the pond outside here, and the other 2 will be peripatetic, going around the schools and various other places that the representatives of the working group are doing presentations there with their slides. You've all been invited to the ceremony on Friday the 9th, and there will be a range of activities on November the 11th in churches and at the usual memorials. That's all I mention that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that information, Councillor Carter. There being no other business,